And welcome back to another victory postgame episode of Banditland Boulevard. Trevor Hauer here with my brother Jake. I know Tony's still on vacation, but he missed a hell of a W on Tucker-Out Lymphoma night as the Bandits took down shades of 2024 in the championship finals, took down the Albany FireWolves 16-10 in a complete game, complete team victory. The Bandits are still undefeated on the season, as you can see on the ticker below. 6-0 is their record, putting Albany to 2-7. Jake, how did you feel sitting in section 106, watching that game at the KeyBank Center? A big 16-10 win against, I've been calling them a rival all season long, and I think that still stands.
It felt like post Connor Farrell 2024 Bandits, because first of all we got Jigsaw and Ghostface reunited, and those
Right
two
there.
saw a lot of great. Yep, my Jigsaw mask is somewhere over on the side of me on my desk, but nice to get those two back reunited. It felt like a Bandits game once we got Connor Farrell. It was a very slow start last year, very abnormally slow start last year due to us not having the face-off depth, having the right face-off guys to take those draws up in the circle, but it was great. Got off to a really quick run after Albany scored their first goal. I believe they scored first to make it 1-0.
Yeah, Ethan Walker on the power play scored.
Yeah, we had a very dominant first half. We were up 10-4 after the second quarter. Going into halftime, we were up 10-4. So it looked like it was going to be a rout the whole way through. And then throughout the second half, Albany did make it close. Looking at the stats, they were up. They had they won in the third quarter. They scored 4 goals, and we only scored 1 goal. So definitely made it interesting. They made it 11-8 after 3 quarters of play, and obviously that was still anybody's game. But in typical Bandits fashion, they show why they are the defending champions and the back-to-back champions of 23-24 for that matter. They won the fourth quarter battle by a score of 5-2, ended up with a nice 16-10 win. 6-0, still undefeated. Can't ask for anything more. They've been doing great so far.
And not only that, but 15 straight wins going back to their loss against Panther City. So you got the rest of last season, you got all of the playoffs, and then you have the first 6 games of this season. The Bandits have not lost a game 15 consecutive times. So it's definitely rivaling that 1993 stat where I think they won 22 in a row. So they got a few more games to go, a handful of games to go if they want to catch that record. But it was a game where the Bandits, it doesn't matter where they were shooting from, they got Doug Jamison's number. They got him early. They only played 12 minutes and 19 seconds, took him out of the game. 14 shots, 6 of them went in the net. And Andrew Kidd was credited with the loss as he played the remaining 48 minutes of that game. They were getting to Doug Jamison early, and that was what I was saying for one of the keys to the game was you got to pepper Doug Jamison. Bring him back to the House of Horrors that is the KeyBank Center in Banditland. I think the Bandits did an amazing job doing that. And, it was rumored that maybe after the game that Doug Jamison is injured. He's ailing something. We don't know. We don't have any confirmation on that, but it certainly wouldn't surprise me because that was very uncharacteristic of a performance from a guy like Doug Jamison. He's a big goalie, makes a lot of big, crucial saves, and he was getting burned from shots at the top of the restraining lines, shots that normally he would save with ease. I'm thinking of Dane Smith's goal in the first quarter right now. I think if he was really on his game, he makes that save 10 times out of 10.
Yeah, definitely. Doug Jamison definitely looked very off in the first quarter, as we saw last year, not only in the regular season, but in the playoffs as well. Both times we played every single time we played the Albany FireWolves, Doug Jamison was almost like a brick wall in goal, and we got him out of the crease early, got him out of the crease way too early. I was very surprised that the Bandits were able to yank him. Not even it wasn't even, he didn't even play a full quarter.
No, 12 minutes.
They yanked him after 12 minutes of play. So that just shows the dominant. I mean, yeah, could Jamison be dealing with some injury that we don't know about? Sure. But, it just shows how dominant that the Bandits offense is. They've been coming out the whole year like they have something to prove when, they're the back-to-back champions. They're the 2023, 2024 back-to-back champions for a reason. They really don't have anything to prove, but they want to show that, these guys hate to lose. And I've been saying this for a long time. These guys don't like to lose. All they want to do is win, and win. So they've been coming out for every single game, except that the Toronto game earlier was a little bit too close for comfort. But other than that, they've been coming out full swing in every single game. So it just shows how dominant that the boys have been so far to start the year.
Another one of my keys before the game was to be undeniable. They weren't letting any outside forces affect the game. If you know where I'm getting at with that, talking about outside forces, we're gonna get into the abysmal piece of garbage that was the officiating that night. But I mean, they were
Terrible.
undeniable. I mean, you win by 6, and your power play's clicking again. 3 for 5. That was something that the Bandits were. That was the one Achilles heel. The Bandits could not cash in on the power play, at least early in the season. They were having their special teams troubles. They were giving up a lot of power play goals, and they 3 for 5 on this night was great to see. 55 total shots on goal to their 47, and it was a great night for a great cause too. I don't know if you guys can see the jersey behind me, but it was Tucker-Out Lymphoma night. A lot of connections in this game with Dyson Williams playing on the opposite side in Albany, son of Sean Williams, brother of Tucker Williams. Dyson's been to a ton of Bandits games growing up. He's watched his dad play, gone on some deep playoff runs with the Bandits with Sean Williams there. So it was a special night. The green threads, or at least the green trim and the green numbers on both of the jerseys. Obviously, the Bandits rocking the charcoal with the orange and the green. Albany was rocking the whites with the greens on the shoulders. It was all for a great cause. I know that Banditland usually packs the barn for nights like, I mean, they pack the barn all the time, but Tucker-Out Lymphoma night, it's really hard to find an empty seat in the building. And if you bought a jersey like this one, it is going to a really, really good cause, which it's going to Tucker's foundation. It's going to the Sean Williams' foundation. So, yeah, it definitely ties all the way around, but the Bandits, they stuck with the game plan. They knew that Dyson Williams, this is a great night for the Williams family, but he's on the opposite side of that field, and I think the Bandits did a great job at looking at him and saying this guy's a flashy young rookie, and I thought they did a good job at shutting him down.
There's so many players on Albany that they did a very good job at shutting down. You know, you got guys like Ty Kurtz, Alex Simmons, Dyson Williams that you mentioned, Ethan Walker, so much young talent on that offense. And also Connor Farrell did a good job of holding his own against Joe Nardella, who's no tough customer, or who's a very tough customer and on the faceoff dot. So all in all, Bandits did a very good job at, limiting Nardella. I don't know what the faceoff percentage was. I know Farrell did a very decent job, a very good job actually, with holding his own, winning some key faceoffs.
They went 14 of 31. I got it right in front of me. They won 4, so it's just under 50. But if you watch the show and you're a religious follower, all we ask for is 45 to 50. So right. it doesn't even really matter.
Perfect. Yeah, that's really great. That's really good. But yeah, guys like Walker and Simmons and Kurtz and Dyson Williams, those are 4 solid pieces on offense that can do some serious damage in the National Lacrosse League. So for our defense to hold the Albany FireWolves to 10 total goals, if you had told me going into this game, Albany's going to be held to only 10 goals in this entire game, without telling me how many the Bandits would score, I would like those odds. I would like those odds a lot. So good on the Bandits defense for stepping up, coming alive, shutting that offense down for the most part. And Connor Farrell for holding his own against Nardella.
And I know that Ian McKay was flying up and down the field all night long. I mean, he was dropping back on defense. He's making big plays on offense. You can't disregard the amount of, I know they say wins above replacement. That's a stat in baseball. But if there was a war category in lacrosse, I would think Ian McKay is up there at the very top, because just the amount of work that he does, he isn't, at least earlier in the season, he was scoring a lot of goals, but normally he doesn't really score a lot of goals, but he makes a lot of great assists and great heads up play on offense. And he's one of the most intelligent players in the game when it comes to defense. However, that night he did score a goal, extremely high IQ points on this one. It was a shot that was saved by, I think it was, Jamison at the time to make it 2-1. He pulled it out of the crease, scooped it up really fast so he wouldn't get a crease violation, and put it over the top shoulder. A complete, he's playing 5D chess on a goal like that, and that's what you're going to get from Ian McKay every single night, offensively and defensively. I don't think he's my player of the game, but he definitely deserves his stripes, or I hate the word deserve. He has earned his stripes going into this post game, because man, he does so many things up and down the floor and up in transition too. We love a good transition goal, but his value on this team is second to none.
Yeah, Ian McKay is one of those guys, whether it's indoors or outdoors, I believe he's a top 10 player in both categories. He's one of those guys that does not get talked about enough. The amount, the valuability that he has to the band, not only the Buffalo Bandits, but also the Chaos and the Premier Lacrosse. I know we're talking about the Bandits here, but in both leagues, Ian McKay can literally do it all. Mickey can play offense, transition, defense, indoors. He probably could play goalie if he really wanted to. Outdoors, he can play attack. He can play midfield. He can play long stick midfield. He can play short stick midfield. Just the amount of versatility that he has, I've always referred to him as the ultimate Swiss Army knife. He can literally do it all. The amount of skill that he brings to the Buffalo Bandits and outdoors as well, but especially the Bandits, because that's what we're talking about today. The amount of skill that he brings to the Bandits is second to none, and he's irreplaceable on this team.
Yeah, I'll tell you who else is irreplaceable. Another insane night out of 22 gauge, Josh Byrne, 11 shots on goal. 5 of them went in the net, almost a 50% shooting percentage. Josh Byrne is absolutely on a tear this year, and we say it all the time on this show. They won back-to-back titles. You can probably look at this season and think, oh, the Bandits have proven that they're a really, really good team, that they're a mini dynasty, and they can just ride off into the sunset. Josh Byrne is playing like the Bandits lost the last 2 championship appearances, and he's out for blood. And we've been seeing this every single night from a player like Josh Byrne. And then his buddy Dane Smith with 7 assists on the night. Just because with being the first star of the game, not only did he get 7 assists, but he got 3 goals on the night. Look at Dane Smith throw another silent 10. And then you look at some of the secondary goal scorers that are just the icing on the cake, maybe the cherry on top of these things. It's always fun watching a Matt Spanger goal, especially out of transition with the key assist there from Nick Weiss. Matt Spanger getting out into open space to take a 3-2 lead. Tehoka Nanako got on the board with a sweet feed from Steve Priolo and Dane Smith. Looking really, really good there. Chase Fraser, the highlight goal of the night, where he's running around behind the net, fakes maybe an outlet pass and shoots behind the back and goes top shelf on Andrew Kidd. He didn't even see the ball go by him. The Bandits, the point is, they just have so many players on this team that can do damage. We really didn't see a lot of secondary scoring as much as we're used to seeing. But what it really is dangerous looking at this from a lacrosse fan standpoint is your stars, you didn't have a lot of secondary goal scorers, but your stars put on a show and they still put on 16 goals against the runners-up in the championship final last year. I don't care what Albany's record says that they were. I had this as a trap game going into it. I've had it going either way because Albany, I couldn't even tell you the last time the Bandits beat the Albany FireWolves in a regular season game at home. I thought this was going to be a trap game. They dropped the home opener in 23 to these guys, 11-10. And they lost last year with Matt Vince being injured. So this is usually you don't see blowout victories against the Albany FireWolves. The Buffalo Bandits are a problem.
Did we play Albany in the year after COVID? I think that was when they came around, right?
2022, maybe. I remember Kyle Buchanan scoring in overtime on the road against Albany that year.
That honestly may have been the first time that we played Albany in their existence as the Firewolves. Don't quote me on it, but that's the last one that I remember from that season. And I can't remember if we played them in the 2022-2023 season when we beat Colorado, when we got our revenge against Colorado.
Lost to them in the home opener that year. We lost to them in the home opener. We went 0-1 that year.
We did.
And then they ended the season and clinched the number 1 seed against them on the road.
I remember. Yeah, because I remember when we played them again on the road the year after, we lost again. We lost again. We lost them again in our season opener. And I'm like, last time we did that, we won the championship. So let's see what happens. And, of course, it wasn't an easy road, but we got Connor Farrell and Paul Dawson, and then the rest is history. But yeah, no, after game 2 against I think game 2 may have been the first time that we beat Albany on our home turf. But now
probably since the New England days.
Since the New England days, yeah. But yeah, no. Going back to what you said about our star players, wasn't a whole lot of secondary scoring. Wasn't a whole lot on the board for secondary scoring. But you know what? Our top guys stepped up. And you know what? There's plenty of games where our top guys step up. Maybe secondary scoring is a little bit, on the quiet side of things. But there's also been plenty of games that we've seen where the star players, the Josh Burns and the Dane Smiths, have been quiet. But, the guys like the Chase Frazers and the Teoka Nanakokes and the Kyle Buchanans and the Ian McKays, they step up. So I've said this for a long time. Our secondary options can be number one options on any other team in the league. So if there's it's hard to shut down this offense because you can shut down Josh Byrne and Dane Smith, but you got to deal with all these other guys. You can shut the other guys down, but you still got to deal with Josh Byrne and Dane Smith. And let's take a look at the two centerpieces of this offense really quick. I'm not sure if you can see me because I got another tab opened up. Dane Smith,
yeah, we see you.
Dane Smith so far in 6 games has 13 goals and 45 assists. So that's good for 58 points in 6 games. And Josh Byrne is at 21 goals and 34 assists. That's good for 55 points in 6 games. Now, hold on a second before you chime in. Let's go to all teams real quick. Let's see how this stacks up for every single team in the league. So right now, Dane Smith is 5th in total points. Josh Byrne is 7th in total points. Mind you, the Philadelphia Wings that are led by Reza Terrence and Jones, they've played 2 more games.
Yep.
Connor Fields and Ryan Lanchberry, who are tied for 3rd. Sorry, Fields is actually tied for 1st. Lanchberry is in number 4. They've played 4 more games. And then Alex Simmons, who's, let's see, he is 1 point ahead of Josh Byrne with 56. The Albany FireWolves have played 3 more games. So that just shows you how dynamic our 2 centerpieces are. It really does.
Yeah, it also really shows you if you're facing against the Buffalo Bandits, you have to bring it. Like,
absolutely,
you have to shut everyone down. You can't just shut down your 2 studs. And this team is full of studs. But when you're thinking of the Bandits roster, the first 2 players naturally that come to mind are Josh Byrne and Dane Smith, without a shadow of a doubt. You shut those guys down, great. You think the job is done. You're leaving open Chris Kluche, Chase Fraser, Tehoka Nanakok, Ian McKay, Steve Priolo, Matt Spanger out of transition.
Clay Scanlon,
who was, he was a healthy scratch, but when he's in the game, yeah, he's a threat. Kyle Buchanan at the top of the crease. You got all these players that you got to hold and make sure that they're covered because, man, they're when you get especially Kyle Buchanan out in front of the net, that dude's a water bug, and it's hard to keep up with a guy like him. But
that's why I like having Clay Scanlon in the roster or on the starting lineup. I know that they made him a healthy scratch because they made McCabe play a little bit more on the offensive side on last game. But having 2 water bugs in your lineup is great. Clay Scanlon, I think he's only played a few games so far this year. But I remember in the home opener, because I was at that game when you were in the press box.
Yep.
Clay Scanlon was almost all over the offensive side of the field.
And he gets into a fight at the end of the game. And he scores after he scores a goal, he gets into a fight at the end of the game.
Yep. He scored 2 that game. He had a phenomenal game that night.
Yep, and he was sticking up for his goalie. So I always compare him to Kyle Buchanan as far as their playing style, but I think he's more of a power forward when Kyle Buchanan's more of a finesse type of forward.
Yeah, and he's still trying to find his way, and he's still getting his feet wet in the NLL too. So it's only going to go up from here for Clay Scanlon.
And now the only downside to this Bandits game, despite the 16-10 victory, was the third quarter. This has been an ongoing theme for the Bandits this year. The third quarter has been giving them headaches. They've been letting teams go on these runs. It was Philadelphia in the third quarter that went on a 6-0 run. It was Albany on Saturday that went on a 4-0 run. Obviously, it was over when Tehoka Nanakok scored with 12.5 to go in the fourth to virtually put their hopes of a comeback to bed. But yeah, it's something about this third quarter. The Bandits love to play a good 48 minutes, and it's not really affecting them now. But if you remember back in 22, it also didn't affect them then. And where's the 22 championship banner? Oh, it's hanging in Ball Arena right now. So Shades, this team reminds me a lot about 2022. I think this is a much more all-around better team than 2022. I can't believe I'm actually saying that 3 years later because I thought that team was the most unstoppable Bandits team since the 90s. But, they got to play a full 60. I know it's a game of runs, but, they just looked uncharacteristic in that third quarter, taking a lot of bad shots. They took a lot of penalties. Those goals that they scored, I think 2 out of the 4 were on the power play. So they were taking penalties. The refs were doing their thing. We all know that. And I think one of the power play goals, and we're going to talk about this one, came after the Chris Kluche penalty, but what are you going to do? I think the Bandits at the end of the game, though, if they can work on that and perfect that, I don't think they lose more than 2 games all season long, given the circumstance, because the Bandits have destroyed teams this year. They've been putting teams away that, oh, this is a young and up-and-coming team, and then the Bandits squash them and score all over them, and you're like, oh, what's going on? The Bandits are proving right now, maybe outside of the third quarter, 3 out of the 4 quarters, 75% of the game, that they are hungry. They're starving for this three-peat. But, yeah, they got to work on that third quarter.
You just always got to keep your foot on the gas, right? No lead is safe in lacrosse. Lacrosse is a game of runs. Leads and deficits can change in a heartbeat in lacrosse. We saw it in the Philly game where it looked like Buffalo was going to put up at least 30 on them. Philly made it close for a little bit, and then the Bandits figured it out to put their foot back on the gas, and they got that win. But, yeah, after the third quarter in the Albany game, that's 11-8. And you and me and every other lacrosse fan knows that whether it's indoor or outdoor, 3 goals is nothing. A 3-goal lead is 3 goals lead. You thought a 3-goal lead in hockey is safe or is scary? A 3-goal lead in lacrosse is absolutely nothing.
It's horrifying.
All you gotta do is just keep your foot on the gas. Don't give them any lanes to come back into the game. Don't take it easy on them. I don't care what your margin of lead is going out of halftime. You always need to keep your foot on the gas. You've got to play a full 60 minutes. That's the way it is in lacrosse. I don't care who you're playing against.
Yeah, whenever I go back to looking at the game of runs, I always go back to game 2 against Toronto, down 8-4 in the fourth quarter. They come back and win 10-8.
And I'll tell you right now, the Toronto Rock maybe, give me 1 second here. They are 3-5, but right now they have so much firepower back. You need to play a 60, and we'll talk about this later on in the podcast for sure. But keeping it really simple, you need to play a 60-minute effort next week, Friday, for sure. Because if you don't play a 60-minute effort against Toronto, that could be the game where we lose our first. But if you play a full 60 minutes, we know what this Bandits team is capable of. But going down the schedule, it does not get easier. It just doesn't. Because you can't treat any team in the NLL like I don't care how far down they are in the standings. You cannot treat them like they're a bad team. Because look, Albany may be 2-7, but they have dogs on that roster. Las Vegas Desert Dogs, maybe 2-6, but they have guys like Jack Hanna on the roster. Now we go back down. We play Toronto next week. They're 3-5 in the standings, but guess what? They got Tom Schreiber back. They got Latrell Harris back, and they still have Chris Bushi and Corey Small and Nick Rosenet and all this firepower. Mark Matthews won't be playing, but they still have all of these other guys. It could definitely be upset alert if they're not on it next Friday.
Yeah, and when you mention Albany's roster and Las Vegas's roster and Toronto's roster, that just shows you how hard it is to win games in the National Lacrosse League. The Bandits are so good that they just make it look easy. Trust me when I say it, it's not easy to win games in this league. The Bandits just have a bunch of stars on their team. Great relationships in that locker room. Great winning attitude and toughness brought on from John Tavares.
The key thing that the Bandits have is chemistry. A lot of these guys have been playing on the same Bandits team for years.
Pre-COVID for a lot of these, for a good chunk of these guys.
Yep. I remember when we really started to, buy tickets on our own in 2018 and 2019. That was when we've seen, Josh Byrne in year 2 or 3 of his career. We saw the growth of Dane Smith. We saw Chase Fraser's first 1 or 2 years in the league. Chris Kluche was just getting his feet wet in the league. Ian McKay, that was Ian McKay's rookie year when we made it to the finals against Calgary.
Yeah, Chris Kluche joined the team right before the COVID shutdown. The Bandits acquired him from Philadelphia.
Yeah. And actually, we got him in 2019.
I think it was at the trade deadline. Steve Dietrich made the trade.
Yep. But he wasn't. He was hurt. He was hurt, and Stainhouse was hurt, and that's why they went up and they grabbed Sean Evans.
Yep.
At the deadline. But the key thing is, a lot of these guys have been playing on the same Bandits team for so long. And I tell you this all the time, the 2022 championship against Colorado, that really taught them how much they hate to lose. Yep. And because of that, the Colorado Mammoth woke up a sleeping giant, and now the rest of the NLL has to deal with it.
Yeah. So I hope they enjoy that 2022 championship banner, because I don't think you thought it over too well after beating the Bandits. But yeah, going back to this game, 16-10, just a big win against Albany. I like to call it a rivalry all the time because, At least the Albany social media tries to make it a rivalry, and we throw it back in their face every time we play
Always.
them. It seems like, with their weird ass obsession over ranch on chicken
Get the
wings.
ranch
I
out. We're
never
going to
understood.
Buffalo, and we
Yeah, never
beat the
understood
brakes
that.
off of them.
Never understood that whatsoever. But yeah, when I said the Buffalo Bandits were undeniable, their power play was fantastic. They made all their necessary moves. And before we talk about the officials here, one of the highlights of the game was a missed penalty shot. Everybody on their feet. The game was already won. It was 16-10 Bandits at the time, looking to make it 17-10. They took a bench minor under 2 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, so that's automatic. They either take the 2-minute penalty. I think Johnny T, with the new rule changes, I think they can either take the 2-minute penalty or the Bandits can take a penalty shot. And anyone on the bench can take a penalty shot. The entire KeyBank Center was chanting Farrell, and I believe it was Paul Dawson originally was going to take the shot.
It was either him or Whitty.
He's walking towards the bench, and all of a sudden we see the milkman jumping over the boards, and he takes the penalty shot. Did a little fake, shot it right at the blocker's side, but man, if Connor Farrell scored that goal, the game was already wrapped up, the game was already won. But if Connor Farrell scored that goal, I swear to God, I think the roof would have blown off the place.
Yeah, Thomas Whitty was actually the one at the center out waiting to take the penalty shot, but I remember I wasn't even thinking about Farrell. I just see Paul Dawson walking around the field, and I said, give it to Dawson. I'm like, let Paul Dawson take it. And then I remember, I'm like, what is everybody chanting? And I hear him say Farrell. And I'm like, what is everybody chanting? And then I hear it, and I'm like, oh yeah. I'm like, yep. I was going crazy out there. I'm like, get Farrell off or get him on the field so he can take the shot. And I see him come off the bench. I was going insane because I really thought he was going to get his first goal, but it's going to come. He's overdue for one.
Yeah, he had another chance with 7 seconds to go when they had that power play. I think Tehoka and Anakok force fed him a pass at the top of the restraining line. He just let his shot go, and ended up being saved.
I want there to be a game later on in the year where they're just up by so many goals that they take out either Byrne or Smith or Fraser, and they put in Farrell the whole game. Just keep feeding him to try to get a goal for him because he's due. Once he gets a goal, that you said it. Once he gets a goal, that roof is going to blow right off the KeyBank Center. It's gonna be
he's a fan favorite, a guy that takes faceoffs. Who would have thought? Only in Buffalo would you ever see that. The faceoff guy. Where's the recognition for Trevor Baptiste or Joel Nardella? No, the Bandits Mafia, the Bandit crowd, Buffalo crowd marks out for the Fogo guy, and that's another reason why the Bandits atmosphere is second to none.
Because he's an absolute unit. He is. He's a tank. He's a massive human being. He goes out, he does his job, wins faceoffs for us. And I tell you this all the time: more faceoffs. Faceoffs are so important in lacrosse, indoor and outdoor. More faceoffs equals more possessions, and more possessions equals more goals. More
goal scoring opportunities. That's for sure. But the Bandits offense does a great job of putting the ball in the back of the net. Well, yeah, I think Connor Farrell, he's overdue. I mean, this is a guy that I found out over the weekend. His nickname is the Milkman because growing up, he would drink milk by the gallons growing up, which is absolutely insane work. That is insane work by him.
I guess I've seen people say that the Milkman always delivers. And usually he always delivers on the faceoff dot. So, yeah, both reasons why you can call him the Milkman.
God, yeah, he delivers. He tries. I mean, especially against the top dogs and Joel Nardella. 14 out of 31 ain't nothing to scoff at, especially when you're facing against a player of that caliber. Nope. I've been seeing a lot of these power play goals on the Albany score sheet. In the game that really should have been 16-6, 16-5, the referees are at it again. After a week, a post-game recap where I said the referees have been letting the boys play, they've been using this like swallow the whistle mentality outside of the Toronto game, because I don't know what those guys were calling in that Toronto game, but a lot of the games this year, they weren't too bad. The Rochester game, Philadelphia game, both Rochester games, referees were letting them play. We weren't really seeing the, what is that? But when I see Chris Cloutier with his helmet off, dumping the ball back into the Albany zone because, number one, the shot clock is going to expire and you can't start your possession in the neutral zone. So he's just dropping the ball down and leaving it for an Albany player. And the referees are going to call a delay game penalty that directly leads to an Albany goal. You want to make this a real league, find some officials that know what the hell they're doing.
Find some officials that won't call an embellishment penalty on Ian McKay for getting cross-checked by Andrew Kidd in the helmet.
Yep. I don't know how you fake a headshot. I don't know
Yeah.
how you fake a headshot. He gets his glove in the bottom of the stick into his chin, and he goes down.
Just when you think you've seen it all when it comes to NLL referees, they just amaze you the next week. And I guarantee you later on this season, there's going to be something worse called against us than the embellishment on Ian McKay. There's always something worse.
Yeah. All the stuff you saw in the playoff game, in the quarterfinal game last year, this is just kind of a microcosm of that. Yeah, I think Sam LaRue took a penalty where I think his momentum was carrying him down. When he was trying to scoop up the ball in the crease, he was falling down. His stick happened to make contact with the player's shoulder, and we're calling that cross-checking. That was Dyson Williams, because I remember he got up. Dyson Williams got up and slashed him in the back of the leg after the play. And I'm just standing there like, let me guess. Sam LaRue's the only guy going. And guess what?
They call him for cross-checking.
But then after the play was over, Dyson Williams gets up and gives him a hack right in the back of the leg after the play. And I mean, I stood up and I was saying, let me guess, it's just the Bandit player going, right? Sure enough, it was just the Bandit player. I mean, we've been seeing too much of that over the years. Something's got to change.
I'm looking at the penalty summary right now. In the third quarter, granted, I'm not going to blame it on penalties for us for letting Albany back into the game, but there were 3 penalties called against us as opposed to 0 for Albany, and 2 of those 3 penalties were called in a 30-second span.
Yeah, and I was just wondering, how many goals did Albany score that night on a moving pick that should have been called? I mean, how many times are they going to get away with that? And then what was it? I'm looking at the first quarter. Was it a dead ball foul on Ian McKay, the second penalty of the night with 1:15 to go in the first quarter? If you go back and watch that, he gives Ty Kurtz or Alex Simmons a little love tap on the chest, and he falls down like a ton of bricks. Yep. He does his best Neymar Jr. impersonation, falls down, and they tag a call. They don't call him for embellishing, but they call Ian McKay for embellishing after he gets a headshot from the freaking goaltender. Like, it is absolutely nuts.
Crazy. I can't find Ian McKay's embellishment penalty on the penalty summary.
No, I couldn't find it either. I think the call was so ludicrous that the stat keeper didn't even know what to put down.
Yeah, I think that's hilarious because I think they were offsetting penalties at first, because I believe that he got it at the 13 or like a 1:50 mark of the fourth quarter, because it said that Andrew Kidd was only called for roughing for 2 minutes.
That was what it was. Yeah,
hitting our player in the head is a roughing call.
No, I think a headshot in hockey and lacrosse is an automatic 5 in a review to throw him out of the game, right? Isn't that the rule?
That's what I said.
I don't know. I mean, Andrew Kidd was obviously feeling frustrated, and obviously so was Dyson Williams when he decided to slash Sam LaRue in the back of the leg. But this is what I love about this Bandits team, is that they are undeniable. They don't let the out-of-shape, winded referees decide the outcome of a game. And I always go back to that Georgia game. That game was close the whole way. Shouldn't have been. But they found a way to win. And they got around all those BS calls. Like, I would rather you let the boys go. Because, I mean, just watching, like, the old Mill highlights of the Bandits in the 90s, they would let everything go, and fans loved it. You had to do something egregious to get a penalty. Now, it really depends on what officiating crew you're getting. And they're either going to call every damn thing, and we're going to get 18 minutes of penalties each team, or you're going to get the guys that let the boys play. And for the most part, the Bandits have had those games where they've had the right officiating crew, where they're letting the fellas go at it, and they're not calling everything. And that's really how it should be. If you want to be a legitimate league with your ESPN deal and you want to get more viewership, you got to get referees that know what the hell they're doing. That's an absolute thing, because you look at the NFL now, there's that whole scandal. The NFL referees favor the Kansas City Chiefs. You don't want anything like that in your sport, in the NLL. That's the last thing you want. Everyone knows that the referees are bad, but the Bandits, like they always do, they find their way around these ticky-tack calls. And a 6-goal victory against a team that was in the finals with you last year is nothing to scoff at.
Yeah, no, refs just need to call it down the line. We'll go back to the Georgia game in the quarterfinals. If you're gonna let a loose ball push on, I don't know who it was for Georgia, but if you're gonna let somebody push Josh Byrne in the back without the ball, and you let that slide, you can't call a love tap by Cam Wires on whoever it was. You can't send
It
him
was
to the
Lyle
penalty.
Thompson ripping the stick out of Cam Wires' hand, and somehow Wires got a penalty.
Right.
Yeah.
No, you can't call that. If you're gonna let the loose ball push on Josh Byrne from the backslide, you gotta let everything else slide, especially that late in the game too. That was insane. I'm being so pissed just thinking about it.
God, it's just such a joke. I mean, we let the referees hear it. Everyone in Banditland did. How many times do we hear the Kurt Angle entrance music?
Yeah, at least
Last year at the
twice,
KeyBank Center, at least twice, maybe 3 times.
maybe
They're
3
freaking
times. Yeah.
joke. That squad is a joke. And I was telling you before, like, I don't want to make this whole post game about the referees, but real quick, I was thinking, what are they going to have to do? It was after that Ian McKay call, that dead ball foul. I said, what the hell do these guys have to do to call an embellishment penalty? These guys don't have the stones to call an embellishment penalty. And then 2 quarters later, Ian McKay, sure enough, gets called for an embellishment call.
Yeah,
It's
the
just
wrong
it's such a joke. It's such a joke. But the Bandits are 6-0, virtually making it extremely difficult for the Albany FireWolves to fight for a playoff spot. You go back and look at last year when the league was stacked. I couldn't really say the same about it this year. You have your contenders, you have your pretenders. It was a lot more stacked last year. The Bandits went 11-7 and finished with the 4 seed. They virtually went undefeated after that loss in, well, they did. They went undefeated after that loss in Panther City, and they had to have help to get that home playoff game from the Rochester Nighthawks. If you remember in that final week where the Bandits beat the Las Vegas Desert Dogs and the Rochester Nighthawks beat the Georgia Swarm, the Bandits needed help to clinch a home playoff game at 11-7. Albany is 2-7 right now. In order to get a home playoff game, if they're under the same circumstances as last year, they virtually have to go undefeated the rest of the way to get a home quarterfinal matchup, probably the last home seed. Now, to make the playoffs, what do you think? They're at 9 games right now. They have to go 7-2 down the stretch at the worst to clinch a playoff spot.
Yeah. Looking at last year's standings, Rochester took home the 8th seed, so they were the last team to make the playoffs. They were 8-10. Last year was crazy. Because you had Rochester had the tiebreaker over those teams, but Vancouver was in 4th last, but they also had an 8-10 record. So there were a lot of teams that had 8 or more wins last year. All but 3 teams, Philly, Vegas, and Colorado, had 8 or more wins last year. So if you're
at worst, what do you think? Albany to make the playoffs, they have to go 6-3 down the stretch.
If you're Albany right now and you're 2-7, you have to. There's 18 games in the league.
Yep, you probably got to go 6-3 at the absolute worst.
You have to go 6-3 over the absolute worst. Yeah, you want to try to go for 7 or 8 wins. You want to try to get to double digits to really clinch your playoff spot, but you'd have to go on an insane run to get out of dead last and make the playoffs. You can still do it, but you dug yourself a big hole, and it doesn't. I don't know. Got some good start, but got good players on the roster, but you dug yourself a big hole. It might be tough to get out of. So, yeah, odds are you're trying to go 6-3 or 7-3 for sure.
Yeah, it's the 7 losses. It's the 7 losses. This is the unified standings. So every game virtually matters. You have to leapfrog all the teams that have the tiebreaker over you. So they also have to lose games in order for Albany to make the playoffs. I think the Bandits, I mean, at least for the most part, they look like they really put a sour note on the Albany season here. It doesn't look very promising for those guys. I think the Bandits really kind of put them away, similar to how they put them away last year in the championship finals. The season's not over. There's still a lot of games left, but Albany has a lot of teams to pass, a lot of teams that have the tiebreaker over them head to head. So it's going to be tough for them. The Bandits are sitting pretty right now at 6-0. And, everybody's still going to be gunning for them, even though the Bandits have at least, a 2-game lead in first place.
Yep, 2-game lead in front of Saskatchewan for first place.
That's definitely the way it should be. They got Toronto coming up, and then they have San Diego right after that on February 15th. So that's going to be a interesting back-to-back games, and they don't have another bye week for the rest of the season. So if the Bandits, hope you enjoyed all the bye weeks now, because you ain't getting one down the stretch until maybe you clinch a number 1 seed. That'll probably be the next one you get if you keep these winning ways going.
Yeah. Yep. Just gotta keep it going now. We're done with bye weeks. Now is crunch time. So stay locked in, play Bandits lacrosse like you guys know you can. And I don't want to say it's gonna be smooth sailing for the rest of the season, but keep playing Bandits lacrosse. We should be looking at another playoff appearance this year, and hopefully another shot for another championship. Hopefully a shot at a three-peat this year.
And now we got to get into our player of the game. We got a couple different guys to look at here. We got Josh Byrne leading the way with 5 goals, Dane Smith with 7 assists. I want to go with someone who had a very underrated night, underappreciated night, got under a lot of people's skin. And plus the ESPN top 10 goal. I want to go with Chase Fraser. That dude loves facing against Albany. And sometimes it's not always the first star of the game that earns the player of the game on this show, but it's someone who's a little sneaky and under the radar and really gets under their skin. Chase Fraser, if there's a couple of things in life, is that he loves facing against Toronto. He also loves playing Albany. And we've seen this. If Josh Byrne didn't go on that insane run in Game 2 last year, we would have been looking at Chase Fraser as NLL Finals MVP without a shadow of a doubt. And he just continues these goal-scoring ways and great passes, great execution against the Albany FireWolves. My player of the game is 95, Chase Fraser.
Oh, definitely. That's a very good choice. And I would say, let me see. You have your Josh Burns that went, 5 goals, 5 assists, 10 points. Very solid night. You also have Dane Smith at 3 goals, 7 assists, for 10 points on the night. Very good night for both those guys. But you know what? I'm going to say my player of the game, this might come out of left field a little bit. I'm going to say my player of the game will be Matt Vince. 37 saves against the Albany FireWolves is not an easy feat to do for any goalie in this league. And only giving up 10 goals against a firepower offense like that, with Dyson Williams and Ethan Walker, Ty Kurtz, Alex Simmons, the list goes on. Vino and the defense did their job that night. Defense helped them out a lot. But you know what? At the end of the night, for our 42-year-old goalie, Matty Vince, stood tall in his crease, only gave up 10 goals against the Albany FireWolves, and he has been a big part of this year as why the Bandits right now are undefeated. Whatever is in Matt Vince's Gatorade that he's drinking, keep drinking it. He's been doing phenomenal this year, and there's no reason to believe why he won't keep it up for the rest of the year, and hopefully in the playoffs if we make it, which we should. But yeah, my player of the game, Matt Vince, number 48, Matt Vince.
Yeah, and he continues to prove why he's the greatest goalie in the National Lacrosse League history. He actually surpassed 16,000 career minutes played, the first goalie in NLL history to do so in the game. 16,000 minutes. Matt Vince, he has surpassed Pat O'Toole in Bandits history. He's surpassed Ken Montour, Steve Dietrich, Anthony Cosmo, all those players that came through, Mike Thompson. He has surpassed Dallas Eliuk in the Philadelphia Wings back in the day as greatest goalie of all time in the National Lacrosse League without a shadow of doubt. Once he hangs it up for good, his number, I guarantee you, will be hung up in the rafters in Banditland forever, because Matt Vince is, I think he's the greatest Bandit goalie of all time too. I mean, don't get me wrong. He has won so much in this league. How many consecutive 14-4 seasons? I believe 3 in a row. 2 straight championships, 3 straight championship appearances, technically 4 if you don't count the 2 COVID seasons. But yeah, 4 championship appearances, winning 2 out of those 4, and then going for a 3-peat this year. Yeah, Matt Vince is the absolute GOAT.
For sure. Not much more I can say after that. That's pretty well said. Vino's been a big backbone for our entire team since he got here. Big reason why we've gone back to back and why we made it to finals after finals after finals. So props to Matt Vince. Greatest goalie in Bandits history, greatest goalie of all time. Nothing much more you can say.
Bandits take the 16-10 win over the FireWolves. They beat them once again. Haven't lost to them since Matt Vince was injured last season, I believe it was the last time. Doug Jamieson scored a goalie goal on the Bandits. 16-10 from the KeyBank Center for Tucker-Out Lymphoma night. The Bandits are 6-0. Albany is 2-7. They have another bye week this week because why not? And they go over to Mississauga next week to take on the Toronto Rock. And then right after that, they play a Saturday game at home against the San Diego Seals. Again, a team, those are back-to-back teams the Bandits know that they can handle very well. I don't think they've ever lost to San Diego, and I don't remember off the top of my head the last time they lost to the Toronto Rock. It was probably the 18-7 ass kicking, that crazy game in 2023 that the Rock killed us at home. But the Bandits have both their number. There's no excuse, and we'll talk about this on the next pregame. But there's no excuse why the Bandits can't go out of that home and home away from home. Then you have another technical home game on that Saturday. There's no reason they shouldn't be 8-0 with the expectations of this team coming out of next weekend. But yeah, it's a big games coming up. Jake, any final thoughts before we sign off for tonight's show?
Just stay dialed in. This next weekend is going to be the toughest weekend that we've had all year. Back-to-back games. Toronto is going to be very tough. Star Power has returned to that team, and it's going to be on the road against a pretty rowdy Toronto crowd. We've seen how it is in person. We know that the Toronto fans are going to be loud and well. So Bandits got to be ready for that. And also, you can't overlook San Diego either. Trevor Baptiste has been out with an injury. I can't remember what he hurt, but he's been hurt since the start of the year. But that means that Connor Farrell's still got to be locked in, and he needs to be locked in too against Toronto, because TD Erlin is also he's also a very tough customer too. So boys just got to be locked in Friday, Saturday. If you get a win on Toronto, celebrate for 5 minutes, turn the page, because it's right on to San Diego for Saturday. So stay locked in. Let's stay undefeated. Let's be 8-0 by the end of Saturday night.
And also, inside information, I don't know if we want to leak this out, but I think the cat's already out of the bag. Good possibility we'd be seeing 77 in another Donnybrook on Friday night. Heard, it's a possibility, heard through the grapevine, through our sources here, that Zach Belcher might be fighting Elijah Gash again. So if you want to see some must-see TV coming up next Friday night, if you have tickets, you might be going to a fight, and a lacrosse game is going to break out, because if we see round 2 between those two, man, I don't know what to expect going into that one, but this is the reason why you love the Bandits and Rock rivalry. And one of the reasons why you love watching the Bandits in general is because, number one, they know how to win. Number two, they put on a great show for their fans, just like they did last Saturday, beating the FireWolves. I love beating Albany. Driving through there is not fun. I call it the armpit of New York. Watching Buffalo pound on Albany is always a great sight to see. So Bandits big 16-10 victors over the FireWolves on Tucker-Out Lymphoma night. Huge win. Let's go into next weekend. Remain undefeated. Keep the streak going.
Let's do it. And let me just go back to what Trev said earlier. I can confirm with him that we heard from our source that Belter might want to get his revenge on Elijah Gash next Friday. You're not going to see it on Twitter. You're not going to see it anywhere on social media, but just take our word for it. If you watch the game, if it happens, don't be surprised, because we heard from a very trustworthy source. We're not going to name names.
And if it also doesn't happen, don't be surprised, because we all saw the outcome of what happened the first time. So, yeah. So there's that. 16-10 victors over the FireWolves. Bandits 6-0, 15 straight since their loss to a now defunct NLL franchise back in last March against the Panther City Lacrosse Club. Well, we'll be back sometime during the week. I think Tony should be back from his 10-year-long vacation. We can do a pregame. But yeah, let's go Bandits. Keep this train rolling. Let's go.
Go Bandits.